that's probably not a worry. I mean, you've got guys that are everybody likes each other. They like playing together. I think you can tell. I saw some smiles out on the court tonight, which is nice to see. I saw Justin Smith after one of his good dunks going down the court. Guys are smiling and laughing and having fun. That's a big factor. That's that's a big deal when you can tell they kind of like playing together. But they're also fighting for playing time. And it's not all smiles. Trust me, in practice, it's not all fun and games and everybody high-fiving each other. I mean, you're out there battling, trying to beat each other down and get some more playing time. And so, they're going to come out in those games, and they're not only trying to beat that team and execute a game plan, but they're trying to prove that they're worthy of having more playing time. So there'll be a battle still going on in the game against Portland State.
Jennifer Land says she said last year she sure misses you on the radio with Fish, but glad you're doing the show. Me too. I want him here. Not with Fish, man.
Hey, you know what? I got to eat before the game with Eric Sewer and Fish, and we had a great time back there talking about things that are going on. Eric does a fantastic job, and Fish is Fish, and he's just the best that there ever was at doing that. Indiana is insanely lucky to have a guy like him that's just been around forever, and the voice of Indiana, and there'll never be a replacement for him. He's the best there ever was, and they do a great job. I love being here. I get to tell you to shut up and say cuss words, and Fish doesn't get mad at me and stuff like that. So it all works out in the end. It's all working out for everybody.
Tim, Duke beat Kansas tonight 68-66, so that's a couple of big games going on outside of Bloomington tonight, of course.
The fact that these people on here are listening to us, I'm sure as basketball nuts, you probably have a TV on one of those games as well.
Yeah, we're thankful for all of you guys.
Yeah,
thanks
no
a lot
doubt
for joining
about
us
that.
here as we're coming to you from the Tap here in B-Town, man. If you have a chance, stop by. It's a great place. If you haven't been here, it's on the square in Bloomington, right on the corner. This would be, the southwest corner?
Yep.
There you go.
I can't speak to the beer selection. Everybody talks about how awesome it is, but I'm not a beer drinker. But I can sure tell you the food is good. The fries are ridiculous. Whatever dipping sauce that is they've got for those, they're putting a rival to Nick's mayonnaise dipping sauce down there. I can tell you that.
This team we look back at last year. Why do you think that they were so, I don't want to say undisciplined, but when it came to the three-point shooting, when they were shooting 24, 25 shots a night from behind the arc and hitting 4 at best, and they continued to do that. This year, they 2 games in a row, they come in a much more disciplined effort offensively without doing that. What do you think the difference is? Is it just Archie saying, we can't do that, we've got to change this offense?
Okay, so first let me preface this by saying I'm a gigantic Romeo Langford fan. I think he is an insane talent. I also think when you have a guy that has that kind of expectations offensively that Romeo had coming in, and you kind of are supposed to build an offense around him, I think it's much more difficult to do that than it is to have no expectations for a guy and be able to build your offense around what you have and not have to do it around a certain person or a certain type of game that someone has. And so I'm not blaming Romeo in any way, shape, or form. I'm just simply saying this team, I think, would be easier to build an offense around because you don't have certain guys that are going to take a certain number of shots. Like, I don't know what the number is. It'd be interesting for us to look it up for the next ball game, and I'll do a little bit of research and preparation in the future.
That's mighty kind of
yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining. Thanks for coming to the party.
Yeah, no problem. But, I mean, it'd be interesting to see how many games last year that Romeo took the most amount of shots. And so that's a lot of shots to spread around to different players, and I just think this team has the ability or is going to have more of an opportunity to be a better to have more continuity and be a better overall offense, not having that one player that you have to try to feed and get shots up, in the realm of your offense.
They shoot 58% from the field tonight. That's a good number.
That's a great.
You're going to take that all day.
You definitely are. You'll lead the nation. You shoot that.
That's something that they have worked on. Archie has talked about this offense of wanting an up-tempo and more motion. What did you see from the offense itself? I know they were really pushing the tempo, like I said earlier. But when they were having to go to transition in the half court, what did you see there? What did you like, not like?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the real benefits of what I saw was I didn't see them trying to force things. I didn't see them, all of a sudden, guys, we've slowed it down a little bit. Now let's push it down the court, 4 or 5 times in a row. Or, guys, we've pushed it several times in a row. Let's slow it down. I think they took what came to them, and I think when they forced some turnovers or got good offense or good defensive rebounds and were able to get it out quickly, I think they pushed it down the court. And athletically, Indiana was superior in this ball game. I think that they took advantage of getting it down the court and get some easy shots, especially in the second half. But this is a team that has the ability to push it. They've got the athletic ability to score going up and down the court. Probably more interested to see how they'll do against a Michigan State type defense and playing more half court where you're not going to, you're going to finish the game with 4 fast break points probably, or unless it turns into a track meet, which it won't. So I'll be interested to see how they're able to continue to score offensively. I saw them run some plays that they executed. They got a lob dunk to Justin Smith from Tennessee. That was set up out of a timeout. I always love watching what plays they run offensively out of a timeout. I think that tells a lot about coaching, and not just what the coach draws up, but the players' respect and ability to go out and execute that. So I think there were some real good things that came out of that. I think that'll be in the preseason with all these home games coming up. I think that'll be one of the things we'll continue to watch a lot more as to how they're able to execute on the half-court offensive end.
Armaan Franklin, the freshman, he had a great game in the exhibition game. He looked really, really comfortable. I'm not sure he looked quite as comfortable tonight when the lights really went on. It doesn't like he played bad, but he was kind of just not the same that he was the other day, I didn't think.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be in a situation where, the guys are going to continue every game probably. The guys are going to continue that you play against to get a little bit more athletic and bigger and faster and stronger. And, I think we may see him struggle in some games. I think we also may see him look crazy athletic in some games and look faster than other people. So I was impressed with him overall as a freshman. I can tell you it's a gigantic transition. I know it's a little different nowadays because of AAU, and you've played against a lot of these guys. And heck, the guy they were playing against from Western Illinois was from Park Tudor. They've probably played quite a few ball games against him in AAU. So they were pretty familiar with what they were expecting from the other team. And, I think Armaan Franklin will be a guy that if you can get, just part of the composure that you saw last year out of Tennessee as a freshman, out of Armaan Franklin, I think he'll be a huge impact and a huge help for this basketball team too.
Trayce Jackson-Davis, also the other freshman, he also got to start tonight. He continues to look very confident in his own game.
Yeah, it was Bill. Thanks for the stat line there. But 4 blocks out of Trayce Jackson-Davis.
Oh, wow.
That's a big deal. I mean, that's a big deal for a freshman to. I don't care what size you are, to be able to come in and you've got to anticipate some of those. He's not blocking the shot of a guy, that's trying to turn around and make a post move against him, and he's just blocking it. He's helping. He's coming across. He's putting himself in position to do that. So, yeah, that's a great stat to throw out there, Bill. Appreciate that. And it's just – it's nice to see some of those things. It's nice to have that talent. You see that size out there. He didn't look slow. He didn't look overwhelmed. He looked very under control. I mean, how many shots did he take tonight?
5 shots.
Yeah, 4 or 5. I mean,
that's not a lot of touches, but it's a nice little. He had 6 rebounds to go with that. It's a nice little number. He didn't.
It's a great. I mean, that's an insane stat line. You're talking about a freshman in his very first game.
A freshman big guy.
Yeah,
too.
Freshman big guy.
There's a difference between a freshman big man and a guard.
He scores 8 points. He got 6 rebounds. And he makes 4 of his 5 shots. He didn't get to the free throw line. That's something they'll want to work with him on. But in 22 minutes. A guy gets 8 points and 6 rebounds. That's a stat stuffer. I mean, that's putting it up there. He gets his normal 30, 32 minutes. I mean, he's going to be looking at 12 and 9, and you'll take that every day of the week from a freshman big guy.
Bill said everybody that played except for one had a rebound, way to hustle and great effort. That's a good sign too. You got everybody going to the ball. That's like football, where you swarm defense. You want all 11 guys heading towards where that ball is. And it's the same with rebounding. I mean, I don't know if you want them all going there. You may want somebody to break it. But when everybody's going to get that ball, you're going to get a lot more of them.
When it's a focus, it becomes obvious. And I know you and I talked about it a couple of weeks ago just on the Daily Show. it's going to be a factor for him. There's going to be some games, I think, when rebounding, we may not say that it's the reason why they struggled, but I think it may be one of the factors that they could struggle in. And that's one of the biggest, that's one of the toughest things. Rebounding is more than just putting your body between a guy. Guys are so big and athletic nowadays that there's a lot more to it than just, putting your body between them. And you got to time it and have positioning, and you got to anticipate things, and you got to block out another guy after a switch. And there's just so many different factors that go along with it. But I think rebounding, if you graded something that probably was above what we expected out of in category-wise for this team, I think it would definitely be rebounding for him tonight.
Another guy that had a really nice stat line that if you can duplicate this game in, game out, you're going to be very happy. Joey Brunk, 11 points, 5 of 7 shooting, 7 rebounds in 21 minutes.
I mean, right now you just take those two guys and you take 19 points and 13 rebounds out of those two guys in 20, they each played 21, 22 minutes. That's a pretty nice stat line to have out of those two guys. They played on the floor together quite a bit tonight, so that was a good thing to see. Think about what you could clog up in the middle if you put Duran in there with Brunk and Trace Jackson-Davis all in there together. You got some beef in there in the lane. There may be some situations where there's a 2-3 zone with those three guys on the baseline of that 2-3 zone, and if there's some scoring that comes from the other team, it should be coming from the outside if that's the case.
Earlier I said Armand didn't look quite as comfortable as he did the other night, and I didn't mean that as a knock. He just looked not quite as sure, but one stat that Tim points out, 8 assists for a freshman in his first real game.
Man, that's a great call. I didn't even see that stat line, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Not only did he lead the team, he had 8 of the 18 assists the team had, so that's pretty impressive. I mean, only 2 of the starters had an assist. He had 8 of them, and Al Durham had 3 of them. So, that's something that definitely is worth looking at. In not seeing that and going back through and breaking down the game film, that's something that we may change our opinion of how comfortable we think he looked. I don't remember a lot of those 8 assists, so I would love to go back and break that game film down and look at it and see, maybe he was just running the offense more, and I overlooked the fact that he looked a lot more comfortable than what we really do, because you're right, 8 assists out of a guy coming in his very first game, playing a role that, what role is he going to have? I mean, Fennessy was the starting point guard last year, and you just came in and threw up 8 assists. How many turnovers did he have? Does it have it on there?
Oh, yeah, it'll be on there.
Yeah, turnover-wise, he had 2.
Can't ask for more than that. That's a pretty good stat.
Am I right? 2? No, he had none.
He has 0 turnovers.
No turnovers. 8-0. That's a decent ratio.
Decent.
That ain't bad.
Yeah, it's all right.
It's not bad. He's 8-0.
It's not Todd Leary-esque, but it's getting up there.
I'm not sure I ever finished a game with 0 turnovers. pretty close. If I did, it's probably because my minutes were 0 too.
8 assists. That's kind of hard
Great
to get a guy like that
one.
out of the game, or not to not have him in there or not, because and 0 turnovers. That's a guy who's just not making mistakes, and that's.
I'll be honest with you. That stat jumps out to me. Usually I pride myself in picking a stat out of there that maybe other people wouldn't look at. Tim, we really appreciate that one, because that's a great stat to go back. That'll be the first thing I watch when I go back and look at this game, is to see what those 8 assists were. Like, what part of the offense were they? Were they fast break? I mean, if you're throwing that down the court and the guy's getting a layup, that's a kind of a stat-stuffing assist. But if you're running the offense and watching a guy set a screen and come off of it and you're hitting him at the right time and he's making a shot, that means you're running it within the scheme of the offense, and that's much more impressive assist.
But if that's happening a lot, even those stat stuffer types, if you're trying to push the tempo and you're finding the guys that frequently, that's okay.
Yeah,
though.
but you're not going to get those against Michigan State. You're not going to get those fast break baskets. And I'm not saying that's where his 8 came from. I'm just saying the statistics. There's a difference between assists. I mean, an assist where I'm lobbing it down the court from half court and a guy catches a dunk, that's a different. You're not going to have too many of those in a season. The guys where you're watching the offense being run, and the screen's getting ready to be set, and you hit a guy in rhythm, and he catches it, and his footwork's good. He catches a good pass, and he makes a shot. From a coach's perspective, that's a much better assist than you're throwing up the court that a guy just outran the defense.
Indiana Sports Beat after the game with Todd Leary coming to you from the Tap in B-Town here on the square, actually, after Indiana's big 98-65 win over Western Illinois tonight. Thanks a lot for joining us. We appreciate everybody. Kent Burns asked, what's the last time an IU player had 8 assists? That's a great question because that didn't happen much last year.
I bet Finney had 8 assists last year in a couple games. I would say so. I mean, I can't verify that right now, but I bet he for sure did. There were some games when guys got hot, and I bet Finney was on the receiving end of some of those.
When he first came into the game, he didn't start, but when he first came in, man, you could see he was really pushing that ball, and I think they had a couple turnovers. They kind of got into a little rut there for a little bit where they turned the ball over. I think they had 4 turnovers in 4 minutes. They were 0 for 5. They just hit but then they caught fire.
Yeah, well, yeah, they had. This is a weird. I don't mean to say it this way, but I mean they had some goofy lineups in there that I don't necessarily. When they had substitutions, it wasn't like Finney came in and replaced Armand Franklin. I mean, it was 3 guys came in at one time. It was more of a line change where they were getting guys rest, and they wanted to see different lineups on the court and who played well with different guys and maybe played better with different people on the court. But overall, I was super impressed with Finney being able to kind of change his role. I would have called Rob Finney a true point guard, definitely not a scoring point guard when he came in as a freshman. I think last year he impressed me and proved to me that he can score. I also think tonight he showed a different level of that, in that not only can he score, they're going to depend on him to score off the ball. It's not just going to be a point guard position. I think there'll be a lot of him and Armand Franklin on the floor together, and Green, when he is able to come back, they'll have them on the floor together, and then they'll be able to have 3 different guards that can score the basketball. And I haven't even mentioned Al Durham in that. I'm kind of throwing him into that 2/3 position. He showed the ability to play some point guard tonight, and I think the guard position is where we may have talked about it a little bit earlier today about how that's kind of the position maybe they're weak in, or maybe they're not as deep in. And I think tonight for sure they proved they can throw a bunch of different guys in that position.
Bill says we'll talk about Justin Smith again. See, Dylan joins us, Donald joins us as well. Thanks a lot, guys. Getting back to Justin Smith, 3 steals, 2 blocks, 7 rebounds, along with the 24 points. That's as good, and the fact that he was mostly inside, down low. That's as good a night as you're ever going to ask for from that guy.
It is, and here's the thing, if you asked me what we needed the most out of Justin Smith, it's not the 24 points he put up tonight. It's those other stats that you mentioned there, Bill. The 7 rebounds, 3 steals, 2 blocks. I mean, those are the things. If you can count on that out of him, you can't count on 24 points out of Justin Smith. He's going to need to shoot 20-plus times in order for it to average 24 points. But he's only going to need to play hard and be athletic to average 7 rebounds. And he is both of those things. He just got to put it out there on the court. If his goal every night was to get 10 rebounds, if his goal every night was to get 15 rebounds, he would play in the NBA for a long time. If his goal every night is to score 15 points, he's going to be playing overseas somewhere. I'm being honest. To me, that's a straight up fact. He's got the body that if he got 15 rebounds, he'd play in the NBA.
We talked about Al Durham, the great night he had. One off of his career high, 21 points, 7 of 7 shooting, 3 of 3 behind the stripe, 4 behind the arc, 4 of 4 at the stripe. Perfect night for him. You're not going to get that every night, of course, but it just shows that he's a guy that you will be able to count on to hit some shots, and that's been a big question because Devontae Green has been the guy that we've thought of as the only 3-point shooter they had. He looked really smooth in his shots. He didn't force anything. He took the elbow jumpers when it was available. He took the 3 when it was available. He didn't force anything. He looked very smooth doing all of it.
I just keep looking at the painting behind us right now. It's just cracking me up to see that. I've seen that look so many different times. But
Is that what he's saying? Todd!
He didn't use my name very often.
That's right. Your name was something else, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you can have a night like they had from Al Durham tonight, other guys are going to feed off of that. He didn't just score the basketball. He was extremely confident, and one of the things that I really liked, he went on a spurt early in the ball game when Indiana was even behind, I think. And he shot the ball 3 times in a row going down the court. Obviously made them all because he didn't miss any shots tonight. But I think 2 of those were threes, or if not one, he stepped on the line. But those were 3 outside shots that he took, and he was looking for his shot. It wasn't like the shot clock was running down. I'm not even sure it was much of a factor offensively for Indiana tonight. They were putting it up fairly early in the offense. But you're not going to expect that every night out of him. But to see that he has the ability to do that and the confidence to do that is that's a bright light for Indiana.
A couple more big numbers. Tim points out for us. Rebounding, you talked about how critical that's going to be for this team this year. Of course, they should out-rebound this team by a large margin.
Right.
And they do, 47-21. They need to do that, and they did do that. So they did what they were supposed to do. That's a nice, robust number, 47 rebounds.
It is. There's no doubt about that. I mean, you've got to look at overall. That's going to be something that's looked at as soon as the ball game's over, win or lose throughout the season. I think you'll see the coaching staff go look at what the rebounding numbers were and where Indiana stands in that regard. So,
and another huge number for them, which was a big problem at times last year, turnovers. 11 turnovers on the night, and that's good even against a team that's not an upper-level team. It doesn't matter. Anybody can turn the ball over. That shows that at least their head's where it's supposed to be for most of the night. 11 turnovers, I think when you're pushing the ball up the floor, you're probably going to live with that number.
Oh, you're definitely going to live with 11 turnovers. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I know I saw a stat earlier in the Duke-Kansas game. Kansas had 18 turnovers in the first half. So, that's a game that obviously the talent level is different, and the physicality and the size of people you're playing against different, but, 18 turnovers in a half versus Indiana having 11 for the ball game, that's something that, they're a lower possession, more efficient type team than what a Kansas is going to be, hopefully.
And 4 of those came in that little spurt where they had that little lull.
Yeah.
So that the rest of the game, they only had 7 turnovers. That's not a bad night at all. Dylan says, any other sports beats, how I catch up with the Hoosiers? No TV. Thanks, Jim. Thank you, Dylan. We appreciate you, brother. Hope the family's doing well. This team now moves on Saturday. We said they have to do this same thing again. They got to come out and do the same performance. You only expect 24 points from Justin Smith, like you said every time,
but I'm going to expect it from someone. I'm going to expect someone to fill that stat, and it might not be, somebody else might score 18 instead of 12. Somebody else might score 14 instead of 8, but I'm going to expect the same kind of numbers. I mean, 98, I'm going to expect somewhere, 85-plus points out of Indiana, and they scored 98 tonight. I'll say with no sense of urgency. They were never out of control. I don't think they were ever in a position where I would have said, geez, guys, come on, slow it down. You're just out of control. You're pushing it too much. I was very under control throughout the whole ball game. And make a decent number of free throws, and you hit the century mark. So, I would like to have seen them maybe shot a few more free throws. But I guess 20, they shoot 25 free throws. That's a decent number. That's not bad.
Another guy I want to talk about is Demezy Anderson. I don't think. To me, this year he has got to show improvement. He's got to show that he's ready to move up and try to be an important part of this team. I don't know that I saw that tonight. He had 2 points in 20 minutes on 1 of 2 shooting, 0 for 1 behind the three-point line. He had 3 assists and 2 rebounds, but that's not a lot of activity for playing half the game.
Yeah, okay, so when you say that, what do what's Jim Coyle expect out of Demezy Anderson?
Well,
when
he came here,
describe his game. What's his game?
When he came here, he was looked at as the guy that's going to be a three-point shooter for them. And I'm not saying he's got to take 10 a game, but if you're that good of a shooter, you should be able to put up 2, 3, 4, 5 shots in a game if you're in there that much, unless you're not looking for the shot. And I think maybe he doesn't have the confidence, and he's not looking for that shot.
Yeah, I mean, so tonight he played 19 minutes. You know, that's probably up there in career high minute-wise for him.
Is he afraid to make a mistake?
Last year he didn't get on the floor a whole lot, but you know he was also playing more of, I'll say, 2 to 3 minute spurts or intervals last year, and it's tough to get in a rhythm. It's also tough if you miss that first shot. You probably know that's the last one you're taking before you come back out. I mean,
Bob Knight's not on the bench, man.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a given. But even in today's world, you miss that first shot, you're probably not taking another one unless you get a wide open, real easy one before you come out. And he's a guy, I watched him play in high school quite a bit, and I would have never described him as a really good three-point shooter. I wouldn't have even described him as a decent three-point shooter. I would have said he's a real good 17-foot jump shooter. 15 to 17-foot, I would have called him a mid-range jump shooter, and he's way above average. He's pretty good at that. Would have never described him as a long-range shooter, and I think that's kind of the fan base putting that on him as to what he is. I don't think he's really ever been that. And you look at his stroke and you look at what he does. I know everybody shoots the ball differently, but he doesn't look like a guy to me that's going to be a great three-point shooter, especially as they keep moving that line back. I think he's a guy that needs to get more involved. I don't think he listens to the fan base, but I think he also kind of feels that way about himself. I think he thinks he's a great shooter, and I don't see that as his role on this team. I see him as he's got to get himself more involved in other ways. And if he started every game out by saying, when I come in the game, I'm going to get 3 rebounds in my first 5 trips down the court, I think he would work himself into the offense and be more a part of it. I think if he comes in the game thinking he's going to make 3 of his first 5 shots, he's going to play 19 or less minutes in most of the games throughout the year. This
non-conference portion of the schedule this year, this is going to determine who's playing when we get into Big Ten play.
Right.
And he's going to have to elevate and give a reason to have minutes on that floor. And I don't know what that's going to come from with doing. If it's shooting 17-foot shots, great. Al Durham did a great job of mixing in some elbow jumpers with the three-point tonight, and that would be nice to see from him. But like I said, I don't know that he has that confidence. Like you said, if you miss that first shot,
it's tough. I mean, it's difficult. When you're trying to work yourself in the lineup, I mean, you don't want to say it's lucky, but you've got to have some luck. You've got to have some games where you make that first shot, and that puts a lot of pressure on you. I mean, I can tell you, in my days of playing, if I didn't make that first shot, look at the look at the other options that are out on the court. I can assure you, if I shoot up a second one and it doesn't go in, you're starting to hear some rumbling from the crowd, and that's even if I had the opportunity to shoot that second one.
You didn't have that problem against Duke.
Yeah, well, that was luck. That was the luck part of all of that. But, there's a lot of factors that go into a guy getting in rhythm. And I honestly believe that for Demezy to get going offensively and have the confidence that I think he needs to be a big factor for this team, I think he's got to get involved in other ways. I think he needs to rebound, become the best screener on the team, become a lockdown defender, become a guy who, you figure out a way to be the best help defender. Something else to get yourself on the floor. If your only way of, the fan base and yourself starts to believe the only way you're going to work yourself in to get more minutes is to make shots, that puts an awful lot of pressure on that first shot you throw up when you're out there.
Defense was what seemed to keep him off the court a lot last year. I'm going to have
that
to go back
I can relate to.
I'm going to have to go back and watch the game again because there's so much going on. I can't pay attention to everything. But there was a few minutes I was watching him, and he was playing pretty tight. He was inside the guy's jersey a few times, which is a good sign. He didn't get lost, which last year sometimes you look around, he's kind of looking, trying to find his guy, but that I didn't see every minute he was in, but there was a little bit I was watching him closely, and he was playing pretty good defense. Is he focusing more on defense right now because that was such a problem that's taken away his focus on offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the guys are probably focusing on defense more. I mean, I know the offensive end it's a huge leap and jump when you go from high school to college, but defensively it is as well. You're trying to stop another guy who's, especially in Western Illinois' case, is probably an older guy that's got more experience, that's had more time to lift weights and get physical and be bigger and stronger. And so, you're trying to stop guys like that. And, I think what you're saying kind of leads right into another stat Tim gave us, that they played pretty physical and pretty quick defensively, and to only have 12 fouls in the ball game. Obviously, no one put themselves in real foul trouble, but you didn't put the other team at the free throw line. And, when you don't foul, it shows that you're moving your feet and you're rotating on defense, in my opinion. That's really what that shows me. It isn't like the other team just ran down the court the whole time and chucked up three-pointers and they never came in the lane. That team drove the ball a little bit. They had a really fast point guard that was good with the ball and able to work around and get inside the lane and kick it out for some shots. So to only foul, I'll be my typical self and complaining about the referees, but I can tell you at least 2 of those fouls they called tonight of the 12 were crap, because there's no way 2 of them in transition should have been called fouls. But if only 12 are called on the night, I guess I'm not going to throw too big a fit about that.
Howard Dog joined us. Tim's an unofficial member of the morning show crew, because he provides me with all the numbers I need, man.
I swear to God. I see it. He's helping us out tonight. I can tell you that.
No, I'm telling you, he's every day. He listens to the show every day. Tim, you're invaluable. Thank you.
You're a big help tonight. I know that.
Oh, always is, man. Always is. So one guy that we have not talked about yet is, just because you can't hear it, they can. One guy we have not talked about yet is Devontae Green. Obviously, he didn't play. But all this that they accomplished tonight, whenever he comes back, I don't know when it is. We don't know how long he's going to be out with that hamstring issue. But when he comes back, we have the same issue as last year. You've got to integrate somebody into a system that is kind of flowing right now. How do they do that with a guy like Devontae, who's kind of an electric kind of Troy Williams-esque type of player sometimes?
There's an analogy I would have never come up with, but I know what you mean. I get what you're saying. I mean, injuries are difficult. Injuries are part of, they can really derail a team, or if it's derail means they were on the rails at one point. They can keep a team from getting to where they want to get to, especially early in the season, and that's a big factor. I don't think we'll know until he's able to come back and you really see the lineup. I mean, you and I both know, you look down the thing tonight, I mean, you look at it, you're looking at guys off the bench, 15 minutes, 16 minutes, 19 minutes, 14 minutes, 17 minutes. I mean, those are guys off the bench. Those numbers are going to severely dwindle once we get into later December and the Big Ten games in January. So, guys are going to be in a position where they got to do more when they're out there. You're looking at guys out here tonight that Devontae coming back is going to take some shots and minutes away from some other guys. And, I don't think it's just a given because he's a senior that Devontae comes in and all of a sudden is granted 13 shots in the ball game. I mean, I think he's going to have to come out and earn them and earn that right to be able to take those.
You're listening to After the Game with Todd Leary. We're coming to you live from the Tap in B-Town on the square here in Bloomington after tonight's Indiana win 98-65 over Western Illinois. Last year, I'm trying to remember the first game on how I remember this team play. I don't know that I remember them looking this
I can assure you the first game of the year last year, one of the biggest issues everyone wanted to talk about was what Romeo looked like. How'd Romeo look? And I can't even tell you what game that was or what happened out of it. But I can tell you, anyone that looks at the stat line, anyone that's from the state of Indiana, anyone that followed AAU basketball, the first thing they would have done if they clicked on Indiana's box score is to see what Romeo did. And I don't think you look at this lineup and there's not going to be – you're going to look at what the numbers are and see who did what, rather than look at the name and see what Romeo did. And believe me, I am not picking on Romeo. It's the basis of the team. It's how the team is built and what it is. And this is a team I think you'll go in and look at 98 points. Let's look and see who scored those 98 points versus 98 points. How many did Romeo have of those 98? And so that's a difference in what the build of this team and the makeup of this team. And, that's a more fun from a fan's perspective thing to be able to look at as to, how the team played, not how Romeo do.
And they seem more. It's kind of hard. They just look more gelled tonight to start than I remember them last year. It just wasn't as cohesive. Tonight they look pretty, like I said, other than that one little blip when they got in, and they seemed to get that fixed pretty quickly, they were pretty much playing team basketball.
They were playing team basketball.
They didn't do that last year.
I can tell you, from playing on many, many different teams with a bunch of different teammates, like there are guys that are selfish. There's no doubt about it. Like everyone is selfish to a degree. Yeah, no doubt, no question. Hey, the best shot on the team every time down the court would be me taking it, if you wanted my opinion of it. But in reality, everybody that came into this game or comes into Indiana as a player has the ability to score the ball and was probably the leading scorer on their team, most likely 90% of the chance. And so when they come in here, it's a little different role and it's a little different build-up. And so, if I told you, hey, here's 5 pieces and you've got to build an offense around these 5 pieces, as a coaching staff, I think you would be more excited about doing that rather than me say, okay, here's one big piece. Now take these other 4 pieces and build it around that one big piece. That's more difficult for you. That's more difficult. You got a lot more stock in that one big piece that's there, and I think that's what Romeo was to the team. And if you only listen to part of this, it's going to sound like I'm bitching about Romeo, and that is the last thing I'm doing. You always want a talent like that to come to your school or the school you're rooting for. So I am never saying that. But what I am saying is, from building the continuity you need for a consistent offense, I think it's easier with a team like this than it was with last year's team.
Last year it didn't look like they had a piece they didn't know where to fit it. It didn't quite fit.
You can remember this. We don't even have to pinpoint a particular game or situation. I can tell you'll be able to visually imagine this from last year of how many teams I felt like the ball went around and did whatever, and then they threw it to Romeo, and 4 guys stood there and watched it, and they were waiting to see. We've heard Romeo is the end all be all. Prove it. Here's the ball. Go score for us. In some games that happened. Romeo is probably one of the top 3 finishers at the rim that has ever played basketball at Indiana, and I firmly believe that. Like, that guy could score at the rim. I can't hardly think of anyone other than Calvert that I thought was as good as Romeo at scoring at the rim.
Jay Edwards, did he try to get to the rim?
What's that?
Jay Edwards, was he much of a get to the rim guy?
No. Jay Edwards,
was a shooter.
The 3-point line was
lethal shooter, man.
Legit. But I think people thought Romeo was a much better shooter than in reality what Romeo really was. And so I think a lot of it, probably the team itself agreed, the ball stopped when it got to Romeo. They wanted Romeo to take over. They wanted that to happen. And I think right now, I don't think there's a stopper. I don't think there's a ball stopper on this team. I think that ball, if somebody's open, I think every single guy on this team is going to have absolutely no problem throwing it to them.
And that's, again, without the quote-unquote considered to be the star, Devontae Green.
Considered to be the offensive best shooter.
Right. They don't have that superstar. And I think that's probably the best possible scenario for this team, because it spreads it out, and night in, night out, you don't know who that guy is going to be. It may be Trace Jackson one night. It might be Joey Brunk.
It will be those guys. That'll be the thing. Like, that's what I think we're all pretty excited about. The takeaway from this, I think we will see nights when Trace Jackson Davis is the leading scorer. I think we will see nights when he was the go-to guy, and they fed him, and we were trying to pound and get fouls on the other team, on their interior players. I think Indiana has that ability. I think they've got the tools to be able to do that. And there'll be nights when I think we're sitting here just talking about what a great transition Trace Jackson Davis has made to college basketball level. Tonight he had a great stat line as a freshman. I mean, I hope – I know the coaching staff will for sure. I hope he feels as good about his game as what that stat line really is for a true freshman coming in 6 months ago playing at a high school level.
And last year, when Romeo did not have that game, have that night, there was no one else stepping up. And they like you said, they were looking towards him. They didn't have that. This year, it's not a guy, so you don't know who it's going to be night in, night out, thankfully. if they start focusing on Justin Smith, if he's having game after game, good game, of course he's going to start getting more attention. But when you have an Al Durham having a night like he had, or Trace Jackson with the capabilities he has, or Joey Brunk, or Rob Finnessy shot the ball. Not a lot, but he shot the ball well. Hit a three-pointer earlier on that left wing. If he could do that from a point guard standpoint, that's something they didn't have last year. They didn't get a ton of scoring out of him, and especially a ton of shooting, outside shooting, which they desperately need this year because they've got a great inside-outside thing going if they can get that outside shooting going like they kind of had it going tonight.
They did. I mean, it was, I said it when we started in the broadcast. I think nothing seemed forced. I truly believe. I think Justin Smith's first three-pointer that he shot made no sense. It was off of one pass in the offense at the top of the key. Shouldn't have been taken. Other than that, I don't really think very many of the three-pointers were forced. I think they came within the flow of the offense at the right times. There is definitely, coming from me, I know the coaching staff would laugh hearing me say it, but coming from me, there are good times and bad times to shoot three-pointers. And sometimes it hurts you when you shoot it, and you probably shouldn't be, even though you might have been open. And I don't think Indiana did that. I think they had some opportunities to shoot some shots tonight that they didn't take because it wasn't the right time. And that's, I don't want to say that they've grown already and got to that point, but it's a good sign to at least be at that point.
I think you can tell that after the exhibition game and this game, with the consistency they had, 10 three-pointers shot in that game, 11 three-pointers shot in this game, that there has been a concerted effort to bring that offense back into a manageable run offense where they can get something done successfully, because last year they weren't getting that done.
Yeah, and here's how I really think they will build on that. There's going to be some games they get up to 23 pointers and take 23 pointers, and I think they should. I think that there will be games they need to do that. But I think if they're starting out with them shooting 5 for 11, that's a much better sign than starting out obviously shooting 5 for 20. At 5 for 11, all of a sudden, if that ekes its way up to where you're 11 for 23 even, we're going to take that. We're going to be okay with that. You just can't start out with, and they didn't, but you can't start out with the three-pointer being the basis for your offense. And they didn't do that, so I'm not even saying that that's a problem that they even have to worry about. I'm very happy to be able to sit here and say that wasn't an issue and that wasn't the situation that happened tonight.
We're getting close to being out of time. We're coming to you from the Tap in B-Town. If you have a chance, make sure you stop by. It's an incredible place. It's on the southwest corner of the square.
All three of us here tonight.
That's right. Bob's with us behind us. The corner of is this College or Walnut?
I don't know.
It's at the corner of one.
This is College.
Yeah,
this is College.
College in Kirkwood, man. It's on the southwest corner of the square in Bloomington. But a great place here.
A fantastic place with a ridiculously
They got
good
a beer
food
selection. I'm
menu.
over looking at it. There must be 45, 50 taps they have over there. So what an incredible place if you have the opportunity to stop by when you're in Bloomington, coming to a game or a visit.
Insanely kind to us to put us up here in a great location with the Godfather watching the Todd father here. I mean, this has worked out terrific. We insanely appreciate it. I know that.
Man, we're so appreciative of everybody joining us tonight. We appreciate you checking in. We will be back on Saturday as the Indiana Hoosiers take on Portland State. That game's at 2 o'clock from the Simon Scott Assembly Hall, and we'll be back right here at the same bat time, same bat channel. Not the same time, really, but we'll be on roughly around 4:15 thereabouts. The game gets over at 4. It should get over. Some bad news for Indiana on the football side. Now, you know this?
I heard it, yeah.
I'm surprised.
Fish announced it at the game.
Oh, did he?
Yes, he did.
Oh, on radio.
Well, the broadcast went throughout Assembly Hall. Fish is on there before the game. Yeah, he announced it before the game.
Wow.
Or maybe at halftime. He announced it at halftime.
Gee whiz. Michael Penix, their starting quarterback, he's often injured this year, in and out. He's out for the season. He had to have surgery on Monday. He injured his shoulder. Not his throwing shoulder, fortunately. It's his right shoulder. And I remember watching that game. I went back. I'm like, all right, I'm trying to figure out what happened. I thought it was rumored that he'd had a concussion, his second injury. They never tell us exactly what it is. So, but I was thinking, all right, I think because he got pounded. He got running to the right and just got driven into the ground. But it was on his right shoulder, and he comes up and he's grabbing it. You you could tell something wasn't quite right.
You think a collarbone or something at that point.
So, and he stays in for 2 more plays, but unfortunately, he's done for the year. Fortunately for Indiana, Peyton Ramsey has done an unbelievable job filling in for him when he's not there. So, yeah, I'm not going to say that there's no drop-off. That would be stupid because he's starting quarterback.
It's just
It's
totally different.
But this is a team that's already at 7-2 right now. They have 3 games left. You got Penn State coming up in a week and a half. They're on a bye right now. That's followed by a home game against Michigan, and then a road game. Yep, we're back on. Don't worry about that. We're back. All right, welcome back, everybody. Bill sent us in. Nichols and Illinois tied at 66 with 23 seconds to go. Ken, thank you, brother. Kent Burns, thank you so much. Jennifer, thanks for letting us know we're back on. Somebody knocked her plug out, actually. But we're back. How about that? Nichols and Illinois tied at 66 with 23 seconds to go. Illinois is a team that a lot of people are expecting good things from this year. Underwood has done a hell of a – Who? Exactly. He's done a great job recruiting over there.
Yeah, I agree.
But, wow, that would be a huge, huge bad deal for them.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those, that's an Appalachian State versus Michigan football, loss early in the year. But Michigan State's usually a team that has that happen to them. They're usually the team early on that loses to somebody they shouldn't lose to. So, it's one of those things you never know. I mean, heck, I think I'm looking across over there. Is that not showing Nebraska down early in that ball game as well? So,
dude, you think I can read that from here?
What's that?
You think I can read that from here?
I'm telling you, it says 35-30. I don't know who they're playing. UC Riverside, maybe?
I'm wondering what the score in the Michigan State game is. It doesn't matter. We'll go look at it when we get off here because we're about done. But, again, we appreciate everybody joining us here tonight.
11-7.
Oh, it's early
I can see it. It's the middle one over there.
Oh, perfect. I can see the big numbers, too. Hey, thanks a lot for joining us here at the Tap, Live the Tap. Feel free to join us on Saturday if you're in the Bloomington area. We'll be here again after the game of Indiana taking on Portland State as they look to go 2-0 in this young season. Who's going to be the star on that game? We'll certainly find out. But until then, for Todd Leary, I'm Jim Coyle. We appreciate you joining us here on After the Game with Todd. We will be on the air tomorrow, of course. Indiana Sports Beat back on live 9 to 11. And you can catch it rebroadcast anywhere, multitude of places for the podcast, rebroadcast, if you're not in areas where we're on the air. So look forward to that. We got a lot of exciting things to announce, so probably within the next week.
Yes, we do.
Three big announcements, actually. Three big surprises for you. They're huge. I'm like a kid at Christmas. I can barely hold it in.
I'm as excited as you are.
I can't. Man, thanks everybody for joining us. We appreciate you. Thanks to Bob for joining us tonight. We appreciate you,
thanks,
General, and
coming tonight.
Thanks to the guys and everybody at the Tap. They're incredible. They've done a great job. They take care of so
special. Thanks to Chris and Nathan and Wes and Adrian, all of them taking care of us here tonight.
My man,
great job.
Until tomorrow morning, for Todd, I'm Jim Coyle, and I will see you on the radio. Good night, everybody.
Have a good night.